Yes, here we go. It's the T.N.F. It's the night where we hand over the keys to use the passengers on the bus. You can put in all your points tonight. It's not quite Judgement Day. It's just kind of just a different format every night that we do, really. Just put in your comments and we kind of just answer them. But we just call it a different name every night. It's a brilliant wee theory that we've got on the bus. Nobody seems to have noticed that we just put a different name on it. Do the exact same thing every night. But here we go. It's Thursday. It is one of the iconic Boise Bus shows. But like Phil McGinley's iconic shirt there. In fact, if I dare say so, Paul Lambert's iconic shirt here. And Marc sporting the Champions League badge. Love that, Marc. I take it that's in homage to your favourite tournament that Celtic compete in. Good to see.
This was my promise to you that I made pre-season. If you remember, I said I was going to go all in on the Champions League. I think that's as dramatic as I got, mate. I haven't even got to the games, as you know.
That's amazing. And Terry Robb, look at Terry just there. No pints of milk. You're off to work tomorrow, aren't you, Terry?
I'm sporting a fake hill figure from holiday. No pints of milk. Can't beer.
No pints of milk.
A couple of cans here and there.
A couple of cans here and there. I like that. But Terry's, if he sounded a wee bit different to you folks, his laptop's still in the huff for him for his epic failure on PMP the other night. So he's sounding a wee bit like he's in the land of, I don't know. Sounds like he's talking to us for space. Oh, shit. My phone's still on as well. Anyway, we'll get cracking with all that good stuff. Phil, you do all that good stuff. You're better at it than me, and I'll get my phone onto silent.
No worries. Thank you very much. So yeah, folks, if you want to help out algorithm CSC here on the bus, obviously hit that like button, gets us a bit of traction, gets us into other people's recommended videos on YouTube. Obviously hit that subscribe button if you've not done it yet. It only takes you a second. And of course, hit the bell notification and you'll be reminded when the bus is on the road, and it's quite a lot, as you'll find out very quickly. And also get involved in our comment section, because that's what we need tonight. We need you to get involved in our comment section, because that's what the TNF is all about. And of course, you can share the link in the Boise Bus far and wide on whatever social media platform is your poison. Poison being the opportune word when it comes to social media. And finally, yes, piesports.com. Head over there and tell them the bus sent you. Use the code BUS1888 and get 12.5% off your order. There you go.
Wow, look at that. And if you want to become a Boise Bus member, it's $1.99 a month. But remember, the content is always free. You can become a member just like Tattoo Face 77. Cara Selt. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Cara. Ali, that's easier. Monty, Charles Smith, Stephen Murdoch, Mark, thumbs up. Danny O'Malley, Chris M, who's just chucked in $1.99 as well. Nice one, mate. We appreciate it all. All the content's free. Celtic's in there as well. Alex, there's loads of yous. We appreciate it all. Right, okay. We will get stuck in. We will be pulling up comments as we go. I suppose there's only one way to start. Terry, I'll let you finish off what you started.
What was I saying?
On Tuesday night. That sounds wrong. But we'll come at you, mate, because PMP was halted a wee bit earlier than normal the other night. Terry, Robb, what you saying to it?
Don't know where I got to. I think I was... what are we talking about? I was probably just going into one about just the disappointment.
I'm only joking. You don't even actually pick up for what I was saying.
Another year. I know, but I don't actually know. I was still probably talking for about 5 minutes after I was already off. I realised, but just disappointment, Boise. Another season, another Champions League campaign. We talked towards the end of last season. I kept saying the same line. If we don't do it this year, we'll never do it, in terms of speculating. The manager made all the right sound bites when he came in. Everything was teed up for having a go at competing in the Champions League group, and we didn't do it. And to be honest, we didn't really. And I know there's a narrative that we were in it for the first 44 minutes, and we were. But once that goal went in, at no point did I think we were likely to score a goal or even create a clear-cut chance. We had a couple of efforts in the first half, but they weren't proper chances. I think, I know we don't go in for XG and stuff very much, but the XG for Celtic would have been really, really low the other night, as was the XG for that Feyenoord goal that went in. I think it was 0.15, which is like 15 chances in 100 of that guy scoring from there, which is low. Manager talked post-match about the guys getting sent off and talked about their inexperience, but if you go and sign inexperienced players, they're going to behave in an inexperienced way. And we just didn't tool up for a season in the Champions League. I know you guys have talked about the money that's sitting in the bank and rainy day and all that kind of stuff, but I did a little bit of research. I don't normally do very much, but I did a little bit of research the other night, just comparing Celtic and Feyenoord, because I don't expect Celtic to be able to compete with Man City, Liverpool, Barcelona, Real Madrid. I don't expect us to be able to compete with them and challenge them, but I do expect us to be able to compete with teams like Feyenoord and a raft of other teams that we've played over the last 15 to 20 years that we should be competing with, and we don't. Just a quick one, if you bear with me. Feyenoord generated 36 million from player sales during the summer. Quite similar to ourselves. They had a 25 million euro player. They then somehow managed to get 6 million for a guy that's now playing his trade on the other side of Glasgow who isn't very good. Feyenoord spent 36 million. Exactly. They spent exactly what they brought in player sales. And they did that by signing a £9 million player, an £8 million player, a £7 million player, and a £6 million player, and then a couple of £1, £2, £3 million players to supplement that. Celtic brought in 34 million, so we brought in nearly the same amount. Similar profile, we got 25 million for one player, 5 million for another, and a few other bits and bobs for deadwood that was lying about. But we didn't spend all of that. We spent 22, and we spent that on players solely within the £1 to £4 million bracket. So just looking at those numbers, and I know what you spend doesn't guarantee any kind of success, but I think we should be able to do what Feyenoord did. Get the money that comes in and spend that money to improve your team. Bringing in players of a higher quality, less of them. We didn't need to bring in all those numbers that we brought in. Bring in players of a higher quality that will allow you to compete against teams of a similar size, with similar budgets, playing in similar leagues to yourself where there's not a lot of money generated through TV and things like that. So that was probably the rant I was about to go into on Tuesday night whenever I got cut off. Do you know what? I'm kind of over it. I don't always agree with everything Mark says, but something he said recently stuck with me, and it was Celtic don't care about Europe. So I'm almost in a space where I'm thinking, why should I care about it? Because the club aren't taking it seriously. It's just nice to be there. And the last time we tooled the manager up for an assault on Europe was O'Neill's team, and he got to the final of the European competition. We haven't seriously tooled the manager up since then, and we didn't do it this summer, and I doubt we'll do it anytime, to be honest.
Phil, there's some interesting points that Terry makes. Hopefully you can make him out with his weird microphone tonight. He sounds totally different, man. He's usually got that booming Irish tone. I usually love Terry. You might need to speak a wee bit closer to that mic, mate. But I turned up your settings as well the best I could. But anyway, you're looking still.
I'll switch over here in a second. I'm ready to switch over.
You switch over whenever you want, mate. But Phil, it's an interesting point he makes because I think it's a relative concern. A comparison, I should say. When you look at the Feyenoord sort of revenue they've brought in, the ambition is, well, we brought that in. That's bonus money on top of your competition money, and literally we'll spend that. We'll spend what we brought in terms. There it is, and we'll spend what we brought in the transfer. When that would be a break even just in the transfer side of things. I think Celtic fans are expecting a wee bit more. I dare say Feyenoord don't sit on £72 million cash revenues. But is it fair, though, to have said when you sell Jota for 25, Starfelt for £4 to £5 million, between 4 and 5, I'm saying they're not 45 for those listening, between 4 and 5 million, that's around £30 million revenue. I think it'd be fair to say I'd expect that to then be reinvested. Does it need to be, though, spread out over, well, 30 million means we can buy an extra 2 or 3 £3 million players, or could it not just be that brings in 5 players at a £6 million price tag? And by the way, just to be clever here, before anyone starts going, it doesn't guarantee you Terry started his point by accepting the fact that the fees paid doesn't dictate whether the player will do well. I would say 7-8 times out of 10, the more you spend, the chance that the success rate will, the success rate would increase in terms of potential how well they'll do for the team. I don't think that's much to ask for, and I wonder if Terry's views about Europe being something that he's maybe getting a wee bit almost in a way where he's passive on it is something that really we need to try and nip in the bud pretty quickly, because if that is going to be the vibe across the fan base, not from the new generations I constantly talk about, which I think are conditioned to feel in a certain way, and I completely understand why, because Stuart Miller, as I was speaking about yesterday, he was only 3 months old when we got to Seville, for example, and now he's like, this is all I know. So if the older generation, I don't mean older in a bad way, Terry, but if that slightly older generation start giving up in Europe as well, who have experienced success in European competitions, it's a dangerous path now to be going down, is it not? Or is it the perfect path for the board?
We definitely don't want this happening comes across the fan base. Apathy would be the word towards Europe, because I'm all in on Europe. I know we've used that term already. The club have used that term, but I'm always excited at the European campaign. And once again, we've got off to a poor start. We traditionally do get off to a bad start in group stages, and again, you've got to look at the investment in the summer. We haven't tooled the manager properly. Now, we're not asking for every single penny that we brought in to be spent, but a couple of 6-7 million level players wouldn't have been too much to ask. It would have took us to a higher level than what we've got now. We're bringing in, we did with Jota and Carter Vickers signings, the prices we paid for them. Players of that level, they're out there, but now you look at it, it's just like we just didn't even, push the boat out even for that. So, and there's no surprise at that result on Tuesday night. When you look at it now, it puts more emphasis, sadly, on the home games, which we're not good at neither, it seems, because it's been quite a while since we've actually been a force at home. And Feyenoord, and a point, Terry, you made on Tuesday night on PMP before Sky Broadband decided to have a meltdown across the nation, you said that Feyenoord are a pot 3 team dressed up as a pot 1 team just because of the way the seedings work. They happen to win the league, and because the Dutch league is ranked as a high one, they go automatically pot 1. And I agree completely. It's just they were the team we were going to target an away game to get points in, because that's the way you've got to look at your home games and try and get something on the road. Feyenoord was the one, and that's it gone now. We've just completely, threw it away, completely imploded on the night, and now the chances of going to Lazio and Atletico Madrid and getting something, it's just we've managed it so badly, and we've basically give ourselves an uphill battle already, just one game into it, and I'm not surprised that there are fans that are having a lot of apathy towards it. I'm still excited about it, but I know that doesn't speak for the full fan base. So I understand that. I can see that wave as well coming across a lot of fans who are just like, what's the point? What is even the point? And again, what Terry said, if they weren't going to do it this summer, when are they going to do it? Probably never. It's getting quite sad to see now.
Yeah, well, I think that's fair comment as well. Mark, I'm going to bring up Stuart Robb, who comes in. He says it's no fault of Brendan. Now, we had a wee bit of a debate in the group chat, as we tend to do most days on the bus. Sometimes it gets a wee bit too hot for some, but Mark, we can handle the debate, mate. And I was saying to you, I feel when I look at the Brendan Rodgers aspect of it, I used the word today, he is also culpable. And he's not fully culpable by any stretch of the imagination, but at the end of the day, this is a manager of said pedigree that me and you have sung for the rooftops since the day he was appointed. A man of such stature, a man who comes in with that wherewithal, with that clout. If he's now saying, and it looks today to saying, well, any manager would tell you it's 1 or 2, and he quickly says, that's not a negative comment, by the way. So he's getting his dig in, but he's doing what he didn't do last time, and he's kind of trying to save his arse a wee bit after he makes it. You shouldn't have been in that position. The funds are there. Everyone knows. The club was set up for, if Brendan needs 1 or 2 more, go get him the 1 or 2 more. How responsible, or how much responsibility do you give against Brendan Rodgers in terms of this transfer window?
Well, first of all, I'll just say this quickly. I think if you buy a more expensive car, it doesn't guarantee that it won't break down, but it guarantees you it'll perform better for anybody who's talked about the transfers there. In terms of Brendan Rodgers, I watched the full media conference. I don't know if you just watched the clip on, I think it was Clyde One it was going about. I watched the full, and he was asked the question, and he says, no, I'm not happy. And then he went on to kind of further delve into it. So I thought he was more, he was more hard hitting than what he has been. I think if you asked Brendan Rodgers and he met him on a train or a plane, he would tell you he's pissed off with the window. And what I will say is, whether it's been his choice, I doubt, to bring in the players in he's brought in. But the fact of the matter is, he should have chapped that door in the final week of the window and said, what the fuck's going on here? I've came here, sort this out. And if he's a manager, it's on him. He could have found a way to voice his concerns in the media without making it too obvious that he wasn't happy. He could have did that, put pressure on the board. I don't think he chose not to. I think the last couple of days he mentioned Celtic bringing in maybe 2 or 3 or maybe 4 players. Transfer deadline day, he mentioned 2 or 3 players, and he only brought in 1 that day. So something's broke down there. I dare say Celtic have stumbled over money. I think it's been a case of, and look at Celtic's history, it's normally over a couple of grand. It's never over £3 or £4 million. We don't look at players who's going to cost 8 million and then try and get them for 5. We don't even go for £8 million players. I dare say that the gap between what Celtic were going to pay and it's got to as far as the last day of the window, which means that there must have been some close figure in mind between both parties. Otherwise, it would have been batted out straight away. So that tells you that the actual negotiations fell down. I mean, negotiations only fall down because of the player circumstances or the money, really. Or you get very small cases that maybe a last-minute injury will make a club no sell a player. But I think that for that to happen a few times in the last couple of days of the window and totally break our plans, I doubt that's happened. It's Celtic just holding back money, and it's no news to the Celtic fans. But this happens. But you're this is what the club's won. But even us now, we're not even as angry as we should be. But actually accepting that is just Celtic. And do you know the best thing that can happen to Celtic is for Celtic to win matches and we forget about it. And then the board win. So see if the Celtic start losing matches, we turn our attention to the board and decisions at board level won't get made against the board. We've found that out that Celtic don't make decisions based on the crowd's anger. You know what I mean? We saw through COVID, blah, 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 that the club don't react well to aggression by the fan base. If that will still be took on board the way it was, knew that the fans are back, I doubt. I think the people standing outside that front reception at Celtic Park would cause severe, doubts in the minds of the people who make decisions at Celtic Park. That's another story. I do think Brendan Rodgers, if he's accepted what's happened so far, he's complicit. Not because I think he's wanted the decisions that have been made, but I think he should have chapped it. And maybe he has chapped the door. My worry is that if you look back at the day he was announced, front and centre, of course, was Brendan Rodgers. But I could smell an atmosphere there. Right through my TV screen, I could smell an atmosphere. I could tell that Peter Lawwell didn't want to be there. He didn't want Brendan Rodgers to be there. And I think the same fart that was made when Rodgers left, the smell's still lingering now between the two. And if you remember the night he left, Brendan Rodgers left to go to Leicester, Lawwell was walking up to the Celtic way and he was stopped by a reporter and you could tell how pissed off he was. Like something happened behind his back. Their two relationship broke down, I think, a long time before they actually left. But he's probably bitter about that. I think at that level there's resentment. And you've got in my opinion, he was a Dermot Desmond production, right? You've probably got a board of directors who all think and sync with Peter Lawwell, right? Let's be honest here. You've got a board who wanted the young Enzo Maresca. A pause for laughter on that one, and Dermot Desmond overruled him. So straight away, it's a bit misty behind the scenes. And is this the board's reaction to how Celtic are to the manager's appointment? Is this them? Is this them trying to force a hand slightly by making Brendan Rodgers, force his hand in to come out and say something stupid, make the club, you know what I mean? Like is he forcing? Is the board forcing negative feedback for Brendan Rodgers, forcing the media to turn their attention on Brendan Rodgers by wee quips?
Negative messages coming from the manager. He's upsetting the apple cart sort of thing.
Then they'll speak with fans saying, "We've got 30 players in there who were very happy last season. Look at now, they're all out of form. He's a man. What's changed? The one man's changed. Do you see how easy you can spin that? And one thing's for sure, see all the board together, not one of them would make a decision based on the best for Celtic on the park. But Brendan Rodgers was, because his ego, his footballing career after Celtic will be based on his success. And believe you me, his success at Celtic will be bringing in players that will date in Europe, win trophies. If the board get that ambition, I'm not entirely sure about that. In fact, I'm not sure they've not.
They've not, which would be very interesting, because then I would also then be pointing a finger a wee bit at the likes of Dermot and going, look, it's all right picking up the ball when you think it's an emergency case, but you kind of need to see it through a wee bit as well. You know, the summer had a couple of months left to live. You had to kind of then sort of emphasise the reasoning behind your Brendan appointment and rubber stamp it with players of a said quality to keep him happy, rather than just going, right, I've done my bit, off he's go, I'll leave you guys to it, who I know don't get on. If Mark's theory is right, obviously, as I think someone said, Mark's guessing. We're all speculating. We all know that. We are speculating. Of course we are. It's reading between the lines, and it's what we do. Big, massive thanks to Danny O'Malley, who has just whacked in a tenner. Thanks so much, mate. Don't need to do that, man. Thank you. Being a member is more than enough. But Seamus McKenna's getting a wee bit wound up, Terry. He says, talk and protest against the board after the season. What the fuck is the point in complaining going to do now? We're going to get new players now? No. So what the fuck is the point? Now, Seamus, I find that an interesting point, Terry, because for me, that then pacifies everything and kicks the can further down the road. And before you know it, it'll then be come next summer, get behind the manager. You know, it's exciting, and we'll start dressing up players, you know, to be players of a standard that potentially aren't. And we'll start always trying to be optimistic about the recruits, because that's what we do. We always want to be optimistic about players that we bring in at the time, and we want to get behind them, etc. So I'm not quite sure when you want to reflect on it is going to actually ever work out, Seamus. I think it's fair at any point in time. And I think we spoke last night, Mark, about transfer window closes, reflect, review. Champions League begins, look at the squad, look at the subs bench after the game, match day 1, reflect, review. I think these are fair times now to be asking questions. End of year accounts get published, £72 million in the bank the day before Champions League match day. Do you know what I did with those accounts? Reflect, review. I think this is the fair way to go about things, Terry. Celtic's a thing of moving parts, not just we look at things in the summer. What do you think, Terry?
I think what Seamus was probably trying to get across, and I do agree with this, some of the players that played the other night have been getting quite a bit of abuse from various circles just around they're not good enough and all this kind of thing. I think what we need to remember is the players on the pitch, it's not their fault that they're on the pitch. They're there to try and do the best that they can, but they've been put there. So if a player isn't good enough, it's not his fault that he's playing for Celtic. It's the fault of the people that put him in that position.
Yeah.
And I go back to the lad home. What do you expect an inexperienced lad to do? You expect him to be inexperienced and do things an inexperienced player does. And we just seem to have absolutely no sense of being streetwise or anything in Europe. We always seem to just always shoot ourselves in the foot. We don't know how to navigate these games. We don't know how to keep ourselves safe. We don't know how to stop making it easy for other teams to pick us off. And the players that are there now, that's all we've got till January. So we do need to get behind this squad of players that are there, because there's nobody else that can be added at this stage. I think some of the players have seen this as an opportunity to improve their status within the squad. And I'm thinking potentially Liam Scales has come out of this with people changing their opinion on him because he was written off after a bad game against Bodo Glimt. I never
Was
actually...
he not also written off, Terry, because we knew he wasn't the manager signing? He was signed, out with the manager's influence when he first came in, Ange. We knew he was someone that wasn't signed by Postecoglou, and therefore you instantly probably give it more of a, see, this is what happens if you don't give the manager the autonomy. I think he's been guilty of that, and that's not, as you say, that's not on Liam Scales, by the way. I just think the nature of that transfer, you knew when you looked at the other ones that were made, Ange had zilch to do with that, and therefore he became a wee bit of sort of collateral damage, because looking at the other signings Ange made.
But there were other players that were in a similar boat and they've not been seen at all. So fair play to Liam Scales. He's taken his opportunity when he got it. I actually always thought from what I've seen that he was better than Bernabei. I really did. I didn't see anything. Even when Scales was playing, when he got a chance at the start of Ange's reign, I thought he was okay. I thought he was a competent SPL player, and Bernabei and some of the other signings that we've made haven't shown themselves to be competent SPL players. But going back to what the question was, we can't get anybody else in January. January will be interesting because I agree with Mark. I think the manager is absolutely livid, and he was expecting 5 to come in the last week or so when we got 3. So there was 2 that didn't come in that he was expecting. And I'm speculating, but I'd be happy to have a punt that one of them was a goalkeeper and the other one was possibly a left back.
I don't get miles off it.
And Joe Hart's pulled out a couple of great saves in the last few weeks domestically. I don't think he covered himself in glory the other night. But again, what do we expect with a goalkeeper who is on the retreat in terms of his ability? Could we not have found a goalkeeper somewhere in the whole world who would have came to Celtic who would have been an upgrade on Joe Hart? Could we not have found a left back somewhere in the world who would have came and signed for Celtic who would have been an upgrade on Greg Taylor? Somebody hasn't done their job properly this summer, and it's not the players. It's not the players. The players just they do what they're told and do what's within their capability on the pitch. The manager has come in. I honestly think he's been sold one thing and given another. Mark was talking there about the board potentially hoping he tricks him, hopefully trick him into saying something stupid. I think he already said something stupid when he said that he would be there for 3 years. How does he? If he doesn't get his own way, how does he turn the screw? Because they know he can't walk away again after doing it the first time. Yeah. They just know he can't do it. And I think he did slip up. I know he's a very clever guy, but I think he said something stupid. And I genuinely think he'll have been lying awake that night thinking, why the fuck did I say that? Because now I'm fucked. If I don't get the backing, I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, Phil, it's interesting that one because I think there's been an emotional pull for Brendan to come back to Celtic. I think there's also a bit of an ego thing, and I don't mean that in a negative manner, by the way. I think he was upset that from the success he brought Celtic, and he brought Celtic back. Let's be real. The 2 years before Brendan was there, we were beginning to lose sight of what even Celtic as a club were. It felt like he brought, if you want, for want of a better term, brought the thunder back for the second time that decade. And I wonder if he left going, I cannot believe that people are turning on me like that, and I'm going to go prove it wrong. Dermot's like, oh yeah, you will, Brendan. Don't you worry. Pots of gold, big man. And then he's went in. Dermot's just left the boys to it. And what's happened is Terry talks there about, what the ambitions are, or if people aren't doing their job properly. I find that an interesting point because for me, I think in terms of what the board have actually achieved this summer, when you look at the profit levels, we never even spent the full Jota money. We've got the Champions League money on top. We're announcing record bank balance sheets that we've ever had in our life. We're managing to put them down to, we need to keep that for a rainy day because, if we don't qualify for the Champions League, we all need 72 million to finish above St Mirren and that, you know what I mean? Of course we do. It's fucking frightening. I think they're all doing their job properly. I think they're all getting ticks from whoever it is that is the head of power, unfortunately. And not because we feel it's that, but I think that is undeniably how it's being viewed. I think there's an interesting point Terry makes as well about the players that come in. It's not their fucking fault. Anyone who's not up to the standard that we want. And we need to remember, it's very quick to go, they're not good enough. They're not good enough. But we also need to remember, in terms of what Seamus is saying, if the window shuts, we do need to back the team as well that are wearing the hoops, are wearing the Spotify shirt, and are wearing the cracking black shirt that Mark's wearing tonight. We need to back them. Of course we do.
Of course.
But it would be remiss not to go, how did we get here? I think that's also a fair question. And that's when you start then turning your eyes to the recruitment operation that's unfolded. We had a manager in situ well in advance of that transfer window closing, with the Champions League group stage secured in advance of the manager even being appointed. These were realities. The Jota sale was with a month to go of the window. So all these factors do lead then to fan frustration. Of course it does. When you look at a bench, I was speaking earlier on with Tony Haggett, and I said to him, when I look at the forward options, the forward line, I feel there's much of a muchness. I want your thoughts on this. It feels like you're hanging your hat so much on Kyogo, it's unbelievable. Whereas last year we were having a fair and equal debate about Giakoumakis and Kyogo. No one thinks should start ahead of Kyogo. Last year, plenty thought Giakoumakis could start ahead of Kyogo. That's the competition you need if you want to succeed in the Champions League. End of story. Even if you want to get points, you need to have those debates about positions. There isn't a debate for who starts up front. You're hanging your hat on Kyogo. Now in the wings, with a bad out injured, you're hanging your hat on Maeda and another. And I think the others are much of a muchness right now at this moment in time. Much of a muchness. So we've not improved the forward-going areas, but we were willing to let one who was elite level leave. £25 million, everyone in this team will say was a good deal, 25 million quid. But it's a shite deal if you're not willing to reinvest it in a replacement.
It baffles me. Again, it's another one we've talked about, the goalkeeper and the left back, but striker was another one that we were all screaming about, and the forward positions, because you're totally right. Kyogo, your heart's in your mouth every time he goes down. It does feel like he's made of glass, honestly, and we're putting it out there publicly as well about his shoulder problem. That's obviously going to be a thing that players will target, opposition players, and yeah, that's going to be an issue as well, because Brendan has admitted it's up to the player, though. He has to go and get an operation at some point, so he's going to put it off as long as he can, but that day will come, and right now it's like we need to. But my concern is this: we're talking about the January window now, and see if we're out of Europe by the time the January window comes around, but say we're still top of the league and we've got a nice wee cushion there. Are the board going to do any sort of,
No. And I think that's such a valid point.
That's my biggest concern, because obviously another mistake I think Brendan made as well, just to add to what Terry was saying there, like he also mentioned about how he wants to progress the club in Europe. And he went and put those promises out there, and yeah, something's definitely changed somewhere. And he now finds himself in a position where, one, I've guaranteed I'll stay here for 3 years, which is a bit of an own goal. And two, I've told the fans, we're here to improve in Europe, and the squad definitely isn't that level at all. Now, granted, yes, he might not have meant the first season, okay, a bit of context to it. He might not have meant I'm here right away to it, but of course the Champions League is about to get even harder in the next couple of years with the change in the format. We're talking about success in Europe. The only level that we can really compete at would be the Europa League, but there's no more drop-downs anymore next season. So if it was a long-term plan he's talking about, realistically, what is success in the Champions League going forward for Celtic? To get into the round of 16, the second round, and that's it really? Because I don't know with that one. So that's another one where I wouldn't have put that out there if I was him. I would have been a bit more coy. He was a bit more like, yeah, we're here to, bring some success in Europe and stuff. And it's like, I don't know if I would have committed to that one, because obviously something has changed.
What promises he was working on at that time, I suppose, what he thought.
I suppose, aye, it could be something like that. And something's changed somewhere back behind the scenes, and it does worry me, because if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I just hope it doesn't go that way at all. But ultimately, though, again, I keep coming back to it, and it shouldn't be this way, because we've said it enough times on the bus, where it's like domestically, I think we'll be fine, but it is that next level, it's that next step that we want to take. And it's like, did Brendan really come back for domestic glory? Did Ange, when he was here for the 2 years, was that his thing as well? Was it just all about domestic stuff, or did he have a bigger vision as
Highly
well. And it's like
doubt
we
it.
need to look at the bigger picture here. And right now, that squad isn't going to bring us any station. The investment that we're doing, the way we're going about it, the business model, isn't going to deliver any sort of success right now.
Phil, do you see
No,
the
I think
Champions
you're
League?
spot on.
Phil, see the changes to the Champions League. So once the tournament proper starts next year, there's no drop down to the next
right.
level competition. What about the qualifiers though?
If we're in the qualifiers, we can get in the Europa League, but the coefficient would have to change, or we would have to lose the league to get into the Europa League, and that's not an option, obviously. But I think the coefficient, that's always temperamental with Scotland. That could change. I think next season, for the new format, the winner of the Scottish League is guaranteed a place in the new format, but that could change in years to come with the coefficient points, and it could be we need to play a couple of qualifiers, and obviously if we lose them, there will be drop downs. But once the actual competition proper starts, it's 36 teams, and it's like the top 8 are qualified, then the next 16 have a playoff round, but the 8 below that, they're out, or the ones below the 24th place are completely out. And then the Europa League's the same as well. They don't drop down into the Conference League and stuff like that. So there isn't a fail-safe anymore. And the only way to do it would be through qualifiers, but that would be a few years down the line before that even becomes a thing again, I think.
Judge Cairney, Pato comes in. I know you're a man who likes his music from this sort of generation. A Talking Heads quote for those listening on the various audio platforms. I'll read it out. You may ask yourself, this is not my beautiful striker. And you may ask yourself, this is not my beautiful defence. And you may ask yourself, well, how did we get here? Letting the days go by. What do you make of that, Judge? It's quite a clever way to sum it up with a wee Talking Heads quote, isn't it?
Exactly. The days were just ticking over, and then before you know it, that clock struck midnight and Celtic turned into a pumpkin. You know what I mean? And this is what happens. This is what happens. And earlier on, Seamus is always in the comments, and I like him. I like all the commenters, but it's like if we just waited till the season was over, that's what happens when you go like 19 points behind in January, and you've got guys on Celtic TV telling you that it's a mythical figure and it doesn't exist. Remember that, Jerry McCulloch? No, when Celtic fans see things they don't like, you can react to it instantly. We don't have a podcast to react to things. So if it was a reactive sport, the reason why we're fans and we're passionate is because we care about it so much. So we are going to talk about it. I mean, surely that's fair. You know what I mean? I don't think for a minute that anybody can accuse, certainly this podcast, and no speaking about the transfer window during the transfer window. We were speaking about it every show, but we all had our own take on it. But we were all speaking about. So we weren't letting the days go by such as we were just kind of thinking everything's going to be okay. I mean, let's be honest here. There's even folk after the transfer window that are still pretending everything was all right. You know what I mean? And listen, Terry mentioned figures earlier on. Take the figures all aside. Take the money we've brought in, the money we've paid. Just put that aside. The impact that they've made is what's concerning me. We've scored in 2 matches in the last 5, 4 in the last 5 in total. 3 of the matches we've not scored in it. We're not scoring goals. We're not creating chances. Our wide areas are not performing. Kyogo's not getting service. There's concerns about our defence. Concerns about our goalkeeper, albeit he's been playing well. None of the players we've brought in are making a positive impact on the squad, and just on the players not getting stuck. I'm sorry, seeing you wear that badge, that isn't a charity, guys. We don't say to somebody, "You're on 10 grand a week." No, you're playing for Celtic. You deserve the same criticism that Henrik Larsson would get for missing a chance, or a Chris Sutton, or somebody who is good enough. See the day that you sit there and go like that, or we can't be too harsh on them because they're not good enough. That's the day you're accepting mediocrity. You need to call folk out. If they're not good enough, you let them know when you're at the game. You tell them they're not good enough.
Yeah.
You can't sit back and say, it's not his fault. I'm sorry.
There's 2 sides to that.
Make-A-Wish Foundation, no, but it isn't a Make-A-Wish Foundation. We can't just sit and say,
I get that.
It's that boy's fault. Right, okay, it isn't his fault that he's at the club. I understand that. But we don't sit back and say, fair dues. No. If he's not good enough, let him know he's not good enough. I don't care who misses a shot or how much it costs. If you're not making an impact, I'll let you know you're not making an impact. If I'm at the game and I'm speaking on Twitter, And I think we're getting down the road of this 2023 situation where let's not hurt somebody's feelings. Because, I mean, Terry mentioned that naive tackle by that guy, and he's spot on. You buy an experience, you get an experience, things happen to you.
Yeah.
But don't tell me a 22-year-old, that guy doesn't know that a tackle that high in somebody's leg is a wrong thing. That guy's probably been playing football every day for 15 years. He knows exactly what he did there. That isn't an experience. That was just pure stupidity. He probably wanted off of that park. That doesn't happen because it's a debut in the Champions League. That happens because you've got a rush of blood in your head. That's no inexperience or naivety. That's you just being an idiot. I mean, I don't think that was his first time on a football strip. He knew
His first rodeo. No, I get that.
He knew exactly what he was doing, mate. And to make a challenge that could have broke somebody's leg or whatever, that isn't something that's just happened because it's his first time playing the Champions League. It was stupid. It cost his teammates, and hopefully at full time he apologised to his teammates because they deserve it, and so did the boys spending thousands of pounds to go to Holland to watch them play. They deserve better than to see Celtic players getting paid thousands of pounds, getting sent off for doing fucking stupid things like that.
I think that's fair. I'm torn in the sense that I think once the window closes, I do feel the players that are in situ need as much support as they can get, Terry. I think there's two sides to it. Do you know what I mean? Yes, and no one's immune to criticism. And do you know what? We'd all give an arm or a leg to be able to play for Celtic and earn £10,000-15,000 a week. Totally get that. I think, though, as well, what my thing is, let's not double down on the sort of the critique that we're giving the club right now, because I just feel like sometimes there is players, maybe you're right, Mark, they're in the wrong movie. But fuck me, they're not going to get better if we're on top of them 24/7, if you know what I mean. But I also hear the point that it's a reactive, it's an emotive sport, and that is naturally what leads you us all to do. I just always think from my point, I'm like, I see them in the shirt and I go, do you know what? I wouldn't have signed you. I don't think Brendan would have signed you. But now you're here, and now that window is slammed shut, and I've been left with egg in my face, particularly when it came to what will Brendan do? There's got to be something in the works here. It's not came to fruition. Let's be completely clear on that. But the guys that are there, I'm going to try and get behind the best I possibly can. But I'm trying to be as balanced as I can, because on the night of the Champions League game, Terry, I tweeted, well, not because Twitter's important, but just my feeling at the time of the game. I said, 2 project players, 2 red cards. Luckily for us, Champions League isn't a project of the board. That doesn't mean that I'm still not going to get behind Holm the next time he pulls on a jersey, for example. It doesn't mean Lagerbielka's a big pile of shite, even though he's given me the absolute fear so far from what I've seen from him. But between now and January, I'm going to need to find a way to try and get behind these guys, Terry. But it's a tricky balance, because you don't want to also become in a place where you just happy clap and you just celebrate mediocrity, as Mark's referring to. But I also feel you've got to give the guys in situ the best possible chance to strive and succeed in a Celtic jersey, because at the end of the day, this is 10 times worse if come January, because they don't have any belief in them, certainly not from the fan base. That can become a toxic environment for players to develop as well. I'm not saying I like the model, but if we don't get behind it, or get behind the players in situ, not the model, we get in behind the players in situ, it could end up in negative results, because we're not behind. Do you know what I mean? It can all stem. And this is a clusterfuck that is not the fans doing, but the fans need to be careful of how they balance then their emotions both ways, which is all just shite, but it's the situation we're in.
Well, see, one that I've seen getting a lot of criticism, and I do agree with what you came back on, Mark. We don't just happy clap mediocrity. But one player who's been getting a bit of criticism is Palma. Like Palma was put into a Champions League game after 20-30 minutes against Dundee a couple of days before. Palma was signed at the very end of the transfer window. Palma has been looked at by supporters as the Jota replacement, because he came in and he plays the same position as Jota played. People are then criticising Palma because he didn't turn it on against Feyenoord. I think that's unfair. I don't think that's Palma's fault that he's seen as the Jota replacement. I don't think it's his fault that he's thrown into a Champions League game after 20 minutes against Dundee. I don't think it's his fault that it took Celtic right to the very end of the transfer window to bring a player like that in if he was someone that we wanted.
I said that last night, actually.
I actually think he will turn out to be a good player for us. I've seen enough in the snippets. I think he'd score a lot of goals for us. Did he play brilliant? No. But is it fair for people to say he's shite, he's not good enough, he's not Jota? I think that's the unfair bit. That players that have just been thrown in there, it's not their fault they've been thrown into that environment.
No, that's true. And I not saw a lot. And you mentioned Palmer. I actually thought he was no bad last night. I thought he'd done no too. I didn't see the big. My brother was talking about it this morning as well.
I don't know.
I didn't think he was that bad. I don't think he was a standout bad. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it was a good performance. I think again the worst performance on the park. I'm sorry to say this, was McGregor and Bielka. McGregor again missing him.
Hatate had a bad one, Mark. Hatate had a real stinker.
So he did. I thought you're right there. The first half.
What, does that mean he's shite? Does that mean he's shite because he had a bad game after 20 minutes after an injury? All of a sudden, Hatate's shite. It's that kind of criticism.
Well, I've seen somebody saying that the reason why he was bad is because he was wanting to move in August. I will say this about Hatate. Hatate was injured for like 3-4 weeks there before the transfer window closed, and he still decided to wait till September to speak about his deal. You know, there was no distraction for his football because he was injured. So I'm wondering if there was no distraction for him on the park because he couldn't play football. What was the reason why he didn't want to speak about it until September? There could only be one reason, and that reason is he was waiting for an offer to come in. That could only be the reason, because normally players say, I don't want any distractions just now. I want to concentrate on, we've got Champions League coming up, we've got Ibrox coming up, blah, blah, blah. I want to concentrate on the important things. He'd none of that because he was injured.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I think Hatate or his agent have sat down and said, we're not going to speak to you until September because we're expecting an offer. We expect you to accept it. And see if no, we'll talk about it in September. We'll arrange some sort of contract, and I'm getting out of here the first chance I get with more money in between.
Yeah, that's probably not the worst theory in the world either. I think obviously the injuries played a part in Hatate's form as well that we've seen midweek, Phil. You know, I think we've got to take that into consideration. His first start under Brendan, but obviously he was off the pace. I don't think there's any denying that. He was not the Hatate that we've been accustomed to. And one of the players, again, when it comes back to it, we hang our hat on in Champions League football. See, in terms of the attacking option, I think defence. See, just for balancing this conversation, I think when you look at the centre half situation, Mark spoke to me last night, and he was saying the big injury list is in centre back. So there's not a big injury crisis at Celtic. Well, let's flip that and go, do you know what? We did probably strengthen that area. We probably did. We lost Starfelt, who I think was Marmite for a lot of fans, and we brought in Rocky, who I like the look of for the get-go. We've brought in Nat Phillips as an insurance policy between now. That's insurance, Mickey Beale. You know, when you're meant to say insurance policy, not assurance or insurance and get your wee bottom teeth out. But what I will say is that to me was proper strength. And with Bielka coming in as a backup, and he liked the look of Welsh and rewarded them with a new deal. That's the manager's gift. And see if the managers watched Stephen Welsh and went, that's what I want as my fourth choice. I'm fucking down with that, right? I don't care what anyone says. No matter how much criticism Welsh has had on this channel from me, myself, and many others, I genuinely think if Rodgers has watched enough of him to go, no, give him a new deal. He'll do me as my fourth choice. We need to bow to that knowledge because it's superior to ours. I don't think that's been an area we've weakened. It's the forward area I'm really confused by. Yang to me looks very much raw. That is someone who's going to be a work in progress, and he can't be relied on to be starting the Champions League games. Rodgers identified that. So he rushed in, as Terry talks about, a Palmer, who's only played 30 minutes for us. That was a player that could have been signed a month before. We all know this. We've had that discussion as well. Do we really feel, though, in the forward areas, Maeda's went from a winger? I think we had loads of conversations. We could refer to a lot of PMPs or T.N.Fs, you name it, last year where we went, first choice lineup for this weekend, boys? Or was the lineup right this weekend, boys? There's loads of times Maeda wouldn't have fallen into the first 11 category. Now he's a guaranteed starter. He has to start. So talk to me about the forward line and where we go for here, because I don't think the front two option we've maybe speculated on for the past 12, 18 months, I'm not sure it's there when O's the backup. And are you concerned with that shoulder injury that was getting spoken of a wee bit earlier in the show, that causes then mayhem if it were to get worse, or any other sort of injury, suspension were to occur with Kyogo? Because I think that the hanger that we hang his hat on is far too large for just one player when you've not got enough quality around him. Bear in mind, we used to hang our hat on Henrik Larsson, but that was with Hartson's, Sutton's around him, and yet we were still hanging our hat on Henrik Larsson a lot of the time. I think the burden and weight of responsibility on Kyogo right now, if he's not there, what the fuck do we actually do going forward?
Scary, because right now I couldn't. If everybody was fit, I genuinely don't know what our best front three option would be. Other than Kyogo, he's the only one that's nailed on, and that says it all. Really, you're talking about how reliant he is. He's the only one I think that's really guaranteed a place right now. I said for most of the summer there, I kept saying I think Maeda was going to, the way he's going to go this season, or he's going to be the one we're all talking about at the end of the season, where it's like, he's what a season he had. Never saw that coming, Maeda. Right now, I'm starting to doubt it already because, he's again maybe playing it wide. He's not really had a chance to try through the middle. We saw it in pre-season where he played a friendly through the middle and scored a hat-trick, but so far he's not really had the option there. And right now, I'm still like I just don't know enough and haven't seen enough to really judge him. So and that's a bad position again to be in. It just again baffles me that there wasn't something out there and that we could have went and got a forward, an experienced head on the cheap. There's a few names that flew around during the summer. It doesn't necessarily be the boy from Brondby we're talking about for like £6 million. Again, just an experienced head, a guy who would be happy to, when he's called upon, he can come in and do a job. Because right now, our forward line is hanging by a thread. Right, forget about the back line injury problems, but we are one injury problem in that front line away from a crisis right now. And I say it's Kyogo, and he is, I said earlier on, the most scariest player in terms of when he goes down, you're genuinely like terrified. I honestly, every time I see him down the ground, I'm like, oh no, surely not. Like, please God, no. Because what do we do if we have to get through to the January window? And I say, I go back to what I said earlier on. It's like, are they going to react? Are they going to actually do anything in the January window? I think if we have got a nice cushion at the top of the league at the halfway stage, and if we are out of Europe, which I really hope we're not, they will genuinely be like, no need to really, well, everything's hunky-dory. We'll be fine. So once we beat them across the city, we'll be absolutely fine. So it's like we do need to be, and again, it's that word, we need to be proactive and not reactive. It's no rocket science at all. I say a third option, there has to be somebody, and it goes back to something Terry said earlier on. You're telling me that there wasn't another striker out there within our price limit, or even, say somebody that's on a free transfer during the summer, somebody that's experienced head that can come in, get them in early in the summer, get them that whole pre-season under their belt. But now, we'll say we're hanging by a thread. And the moment with the front three, I genuinely don't know who the best front three are when they're all fit right now, because I've not seen enough of some of the players, and it does worry me a little bit.
What about the Asian Cup?
That's something to consider as well, because we're going to lose Tilio, Kyogo, Maeda. You've got to imagine Hitati will be in the Japan squad as well. You would have to think. Yang, there's a good chance he would be in the South Korea squad as well. That's quite a lot, and I know there's a whole thing about if we've got a certain number of players missing, we can look to get fixtures postponed. But ideally, you want to just try and get points on the board rather than games in hand. But if we are missing about 6 or 7 players plus any injuries or suspensions that are floating about at that time, then
there's a break in the football. I'm just checking that. There's actually
the January break is there. I think we've got a game against St Mirren right at the turn of the year, and I think that's affected. And then the next one,
many, to be fair, there's no, because I did worry about that myself, and I'm just checking on my calendar. Excuse me, looking at my phone. There's Ross Cairney at home, I think, and there's the rest. It's like there's no many games in January at all. See, the thing is, we would all accept that if Kyogo gets injured, there'd be a crisis in striker. That just confirms to anybody that none of us trust O. So
Yeah.
we're actually suggesting our backup striker is nowhere near it, right? So we went into this league. I'm not going to go backwards, but we went into this league with a left back cover really, and with a striker cover. We all that money. That's where we are. But we've got a front three that you just mentioned there. I don't think Maeda's up to the jersey. I really don't. I think hard work and commitment doesn't make you a Celtic player. I think there's more to it than that. There's doubts about the players we've brought in. And Kyogo, he's made a glass. He went off at the game last week. Right up the tunnel. I went, oh no, that's us. He came back on. I think he was getting an injection. There's no way up that tunnel to get his shoulder popped. They could have done that at the sidelines. We've seen it before. I think he was getting a pain injection or something. I don't really know, but just my suspicion. You don't go up the tunnel to get something like that done to you. So just shows you that how fragile that boy is. And I tell you something, I'm not convinced we've got the squad to pummel teams week in, week out as it is. I think there's going to be a lot of hairy games this season. I really, really do. But take Kyogo with that situation, and you're talking. I'm sitting just now talking about a team that's not scored 3 out of the 5 last matches, scored 4 in the 5 matches, and 3 was in one game. So we're missing goals, and the guy who we rely on goals, who's outstanding, take him away from that equation, and you're saying to yourself, we've got a team who are lacking that killer instinct and lacking that creativity, and your best players could be your best players out of that equation. Then you go, where do we go? Because if the answer is Maeda through the middle, then what's the fucking question? I don't think it's who's the best for that position. Tyson Maeda, I just mentioned it there. If he is Celtic quality, there must be Celtic players throughout the history that didn't get a lot of game time at Celtic. They'll be sitting cursing their luck that they're not playing for the club at this time, because that guy is nothing more than a workhorse. A fantastic asset to have. He's a fantastic. I've saw that guy run down the park and hit and make passes and hit crosses that my daughter could do. You know what I mean? Really, genuinely. I've also seen him score some good goals at Easter Road. He scored one at Ibrox, a brilliant goal. But more often, I'd say 8 out of 10, he is a stinker. Let's be honest. A few good games aside, and me and David will have a laugh about him quite often. But the reality is, that guy is not Celtic quality. And I guarantee you, he is probably one of the first names on that team sheet. Not because he...
Oh no, he's now mandatory in the first 11.
He's
Man.
mandatory.
There's no two
The
ways.
main reason is there is nobody that's got to take his jersey off him. I think he has got the commitment and the rest of it, and that only gets you so far. Brendan Rodgers must see by that. But who is there?
I think if there was more quality around him, I still see a place for him in the Celtic start lineup, particularly in Europe. I see the strength that he brings to the team. I really do. But only if it's supplemented by others with more quality in the ball, which I'm not. I think Maeda's now, we're hanging a hat on him more. We're hanging a hat on Maeda more than what's necessary for a player. I think he brings balance to a better Celtic team, not balance to a Celtic team of the current standard. I think once he becomes, you're relying on him, I'm confused by that as well. But Terry, interesting enough, full times went at Ibrox. They've pulled out a 1-0 result. They've won at home in Europe. They've got another 3 points. They keep the coefficient points going up for us because we'll win the league again, in my opinion. And, you know, God love them for at least doing us a favour and helping our cause and getting automatic group qualification in European campaigns, because they've done a hell of a job. But you can't help but just feel that games like Betis at home, they somehow again get a result that, to me, I think we'd be wetting our fucking pants over, to be honest with you. I think if we beat Betis at home, even this season, if they were in Europe, we'd be going, holy fuck, we're back. They seem to get these results time and time again over this spell of domestic success that we've enjoyed. I think in Europe, they seem to, at times, excel Celtic with results of note. And I would say beating a La Liga team of proper quality, let's be real here, proper quality, they beat them on. That's to be honest, if you look at them over the last 3 or 4 years, they get these results time and time again in Europe. What's the missing ingredient for the Celtic side to do similar? Because I just don't feel when I go into European games, whether it be Champions League or Europa League, even Conference League against Bodo Glimt, we seem to go into these games with the same confidence of result and certainly don't pick them up either.
don't know, boys. I don't know what the answer to that is. I'm genuinely shocked that they won tonight because I thought Betis would go there. Given what we seen when we went to Ibrox and how we were able to get a result, I thought a team like Betis, who finished, I don't know, top 6, top 7 in Spain, I thought they would have went there and ripped them apart. I'm actually surprised. I'm surprised they got a clean sheet. I'm surprised they got the result. But what you've said is true. They've been doing this over the last 5 years. They've been getting results like this. So I don't know what the answer is. Is it the atmosphere at Ibrox? Is it the atmosphere at Ibrox in these nights? Is that any different to the atmosphere at Celtic Park? I just don't know.
We're a bit more family friendly, I think. I think we're a bit more PG now. And that's not because you want to go into the fucking realms that they go into song list wise. But I just think in terms of hostility, Celtic went for under O'Neill. It was very hostile. It wasn't always about singing about the IRA and stuff like that. It just felt like it was a hostile atmosphere, welcome the Lions Den sort of atmosphere that I think has drifted away a wee bit for Celtic in recent times in Europe.
I don't know, but I can't fathom how a team that we beat a couple of weeks ago were able to beat a team from the top half of the Spanish league. It just doesn't make any kind of sense. I didn't watch the game. I didn't see any of it. I don't know what way the game played out, but they've got the result. They've got the job done, and somehow they do seem to be able to find a way of getting the job done in Europe, albeit they can't do anything domestically. Something we just touched on, though, let's turn it into a positive before we finish. Look, this group, nobody's going to run away with this group. And we're 1 game down. Next game's at home. It's against Lazio. I think it's a winnable game. I genuinely do. I think it's a winnable game. We could be sitting in second place in a week and a half's time in this group. If we were to get the result in that game and the other game, one of those two teams was to win, we'd be sitting in second place after 2 games. So, yes, it was disappointing. Yes, we really want to chew over the failings of the club over the summer, the transfer window and all of that. But we could be sitting here in 10 days' time, sitting in second place, and you and me could be on a post-match pish, whatever night that is, Tuesday or Wednesday. It'll probably be a Wednesday, and we could be talking about how we've got a chance of getting out of this group.
Fingers crossed, eh? But to tell you what, Phil, forget European football. We're going to a place Brendan's never won this weekend. Livy away. We'll do a wee round robin of that because I know it's getting a wee bit late. But we'll do a quick round robin on thoughts on Livy away. If we just keep it brief to about 60 seconds each, we'll get round robin and then we'll call it a night.
I hate this fixture more than Celtic going to Ibrox right now. Hate Livingston. Hate when we go there. We need to make sure that we picked it up last season against them. We need to continue that. So fingers crossed, everything goes well. We come out with the 3 points by hook or by crook. Whatever we do, we get the job done.
Well, that was short and sweet. I love it. See, Phil, that's efficiency, mate. I love that, mate. That is the engine.
I'll be talking about it more in detail tomorrow night on the Friday.
Yeah, I knew that. The Friday feeling, mate. The Friday feeling. Get that plug in. The Friday feeling will be back tomorrow. Mark, Livy away. It's dangerous territory. Hopefully the hex is off because of the results we picked up under Ange since we were there. Well, how are you feeling though? That it's massive. Saturday half 12 kickoff?
Half 12.
Huge.
I'm looking forward to it, mate. It's one of the few that I get a ticket for the away game, so I'm looking forward to going.
Where you going? Brilliant.
Aye.
I was offered when I turned it down.
Oh, you sure took it. To be honest with you, I don't really know. To be honest with you, we're not playing well home or away just now, performance-wise. So Celtic just need to go there and get the job done. It's going to have to be a day where we wear the worky outfits rather than the shirt and tie that Jock Stein says. We've got to go there and just play our game, hopefully find a way of getting through. My worry about Livingston Stadium is it's so small, it's so tight. We've not got enough width as it is. So where the goals are going to come from, I don't know, but I just hope we get one. And I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, it's another week under Brendan Rodgers in the training ground, so you never know. We might have something up our sleeve.
Well, Stuart Robb missed the fact that his comment was brought up about 5 minutes ago, mate. I know you were typing in capital letters before, but your comment was definitely brought up earlier. But he's lost all fair in this channel, so well, fair enough, mate. Hey, Terry, Livy away, the spaghetti had fear or optimism?
Plain sailing, 2 or 3-0, Lewis Palmer to score his first goal for Celtic.
Oh, love it. And Brendan to get his first win
Terence.
there then. I like that. No, I'm all for that. Well, hopefully that will be the case. Again, apologies, ladies and gentlemen, if it feels like the show's been negative at all. We're calling it as we see it with regards to things off field that lead to things on field. I think it's the only way to kind of viewpoint things. When a transfer window shuts, accounts get released, a Champions Leagues begin.
Is it,
and
boys,
you
is it rank to be negative? So is it rank to be negative or after getting pumped 2-0 and 2 players sent off? Should we
I never
sitting
said
there going-
wrong. I would
No, but I
rather
don't mean
say.
you said that, but if the vibe seems negative, right? Don't think we're going
What
to be
does that
sitting there
tell
going
you?
that. Yes, 2-0, we get pumped, 2 players sent off, full of diddies, Lager Bielka. I'm sorry, and I apologise to anybody that thinks we're trying to come across negative, but we're just talking the way we feel, and that's why you watch, because we don't kid on
Yeah,
some
you're
podcast.
right. No, I think you're right. I think what I would say is it's a negative conversation to have, whether we're right or wrong. I think it is just a negative conversation. It just is. The tone of it is negative.
We'll end on a
because
positive.
it's in reality.
We're gonna beat Livy easy at the weekend. We're gonna beat
Alright.
Lazio at home. We're gonna be in second place next Wednesday night.
Yes,
2 weeks.
Terry! I love it, mate. I love it. See, that's it. That's that PMP vibe that you bring. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a brilliant T.N.F. Thanks so much to everyone in the comments. As always, you make the show. Cheers to Mark. Cheers to Phil. Cheers to Terry Rob for a spontaneous appearance. We do appreciate it. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, hail, hail. Keep your eye on this board.